Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from the Govardhan Echo Village. This is our fifth episode of Wisdom of the Sages, our daily yoga podcast. My name is Raghunath. I'm here with Kaustubha, and we are studying the sacred yogic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Many spiritual, metaphysical, otherworldly literature from ancient India. They say that this is the pinnacle. This is the top. This is the sum. This is the topmost. And we're going through this. And we're going through this the way the author said you should go through it, which is every day. You give a little bit of time to it every day. And truthfully, that's how we change in this world, isn't it? If I say, year 2020, I'm going to start doing some yoga. That's one way you could approach 2020. Another way to say is, in 2020, I'm going to do yoga 4 times a week for an hour and a half a day. Who do you think is going to get better by the end of the year? Person A or person B by the time December rolls around? Yeah, right? Explicit goals change you. Explicit goals change us. And that's the concept of a spiritual sadhana, a regular practice. And in this case, it's regularly hearing wisdom, which helps us keep us within our car on the road from flying off cliffs. Good. Ever fly off a cliff?
I know you have. I haven't. I know you have.
I both have figuratively and
literally
flown off some cliffs. We're at a good place in the Bhagavatam too. Here, we're at this very first canto. Bhakti Louis, we have some special. So we're listening. Let's check in with Louis this morning. We got about 60 people from our training here. We got about 56 people here live on Zoom. Bhakti Louis, everything good? You want to unmute? Say hello to everybody.
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. You just remind me every morning that, what this does for me is reminds me that today I'm going to try to be less of an asshole than I was yesterday.
Why do I love this man so much?
We're going to have to change the rating on the
on the podcast.
No problem.
You just took it up to You just took it up to PG-13.
I mean, I'm for me personally.
But you just be you. That's what we want.
Because, don't forget, Prabhu, I'm the one that's still in this material ocean. I'm the one who went through this every day. You know what I mean? So. It just reminds me, just these little doses every morning, just listening to this holy scriptures, just constantly resonate inside my head throughout the day. Try to be a better person today.
It's true.
Thank you.
It's true. Let's face it. I could do all these asanas perfectly and still be a total jerk and still be completely self-centered, still be completely narcissistic. The physical practice is supposed to... What's that, brother? In the material ocean, Louis.
Yeah, and the material ocean becomes even more difficult to try to not be a jerk off because for me, I feel like I'm just encapsulated by all these individuals that really have no clue. And it's not that they don't want a clue. It's just that they're trapped in this sort of material illusion. They don't even realize it.
You want to give some backstory to Louis Kaustubha?
Well, Louis means a lot to us because we come from a particular scene.
You might as well just call it out. What the scene was.
New York hardcore scene, which was in one way was a beautiful thing, and one way was an ugly thing, right? It had a lot of youth and creativity and individuality, and it also had its darker side too. But somehow. And my faith is because it was centered right on the edge of Tompkins Square Park, which has an important role in the history of the Bhakti movement coming to the West, because that's where Srila Prabhupada first brought kirtan. That somehow within that scene, there was an interest in Bhakti Yoga developed. And Louis was in a band called Antidote, which was the first band to really record that hardcore music with that spiritual bhakti theme. And so from that, other bands caught on to it. And eventually your band really took it, you know, as far as anyone took it. And it's through that so many people have developed an interest in Bhakti. A lot of our friends, so many of
That's why we call Louis the seed.
The seed.
He's the seed. Thank you.
You know,
Louis.
back then, let me say a little story about like back then when I was actually in part of the Bhakti program, when I was actually living in the temple at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
For me, it was really, really good sometimes to like get up for Mangal Arti in the morning and look over in the corner and see people that I knew from the scene. They would just come and visit or just partake. And some of those people were like you, Kaustubha.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance by then. Like I had kind of like bonked out by the time Ray kind of dove in.
Okay.
But
that's me.
you know, it was really kind of rewarding. Like for me, it was like a breath of fresh air to be like, oh wow, after Mangal Arti, I could have breakfast with Kaustubha and talk to him and ask him how he was doing and how are things going for you. You know what I mean? Because I was kind of in the four walls. I was kind of like you, Ray. I was afraid to go outside because I didn't know what was waiting for me out there at the time. And I just wanted to get absorbed in Krishna.
Hey, Prabhu, it's 30 plus years later, and here we are. We're reading from the Bhagavatam.
Beautiful. So let's dive into this.
All right, let's dive into this nectar right now. Thank you, Prabhu, for that. We are on text 19. We always start reading by saying a prayer to the Bhagavatam itself. It goes a little something like this. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of our conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Nasta.
Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Oh, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. How did I miss that one?
I don't know.
Sorry about that, Vyasadeva.
That's not an auspicious way to start.
Nasta prayesva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om agyana tamarandasya gyananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namaha. By the way, if you're listening on our podcast, Apple Podcasts, if you like what we're doing, give it a 5-star, write a review. It helps us out here. Also, if you have any questions that you'd like answered, mail them to Mara, our executive producer, one of the 2 executive producers, and at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com.
Correct.
Thank you. Just barely. So we're on
Text 19.
Yeah, we're on text 19. We ended there. We're just going to dive back into this right now.
Okay. The sages are speaking to Sukadeva Goswami in the forest of Naimisharanya, wrapping up their questions to him.
And they're saying, we never tire of hearing the transcendental pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is glorified by hymns and prayers. Those who have developed a taste for transcendental relationships with him relish hearing of his pastimes at every moment. I'm going to read a little bit about that purport, if you want to, or if you like to read.
No, please. I'd like to hear you read.
There's a great, I say that because someone sent me a message on Instagram said, hey, great text. Let Kaustubha speak more. Or no, he said great class. Let Kaustubha.
Someone.
And I've been self-conscious all day for that.
No, I want to hear it. But it's someone wrote another humorous thing. I don't know if you saw it. They said you were like the drunk friend in the bar, and I was like the sober friend trying to get you out before you caused too much trouble.
I see that one.
But your drunkenness is transcendental drunkenness.
Okay, I'll take that. Okay, so I shall read. Okay, there is a great difference. This is the purport here. There's a great difference between mundane stories, fiction, or history, and the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Who would write such a thing? Who would write that?
Just straight out.
He was just being straightforward, I guess.
Straightforward. Okay.
He should have wrote it to you. Just said, "Hey, Kaustubha, just speak a little more. Be nice. I like hearing you speak. Why write it to me?" Am I taking an offense here?
No,
I'm taking an offense. I got to not take an offense. People of devotees of Lord Vishnu take no offense. The histories of the whole universe contain references to the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord. The Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Puranas are histories of bygone ages, recorded in connection with the pastimes of the incarnations of the Lord, and therefore remain fresh even after repeated readings. For example, anyone may read the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam repeatedly throughout their whole life, and yet find new light of the information. So this is, quite amazing. My children, but everyone who raises their children in bhakti, they grew up reading all these pastimes. Why? Because they read like comic books. Matter of fact, you can buy the comic books. Mahabharata, Amar Chitra Katha. Google that. Amar Chitra Katha.
A lot of good stuff there.
Great stuff. Gods and goddesses, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana. They get in love with it. They fall in love with the characters. And the interesting thing is, a child's mind wants these characters. They want to hear about this, about them, and they start to take over. Matter of fact, my kids who went to the Waldorf school, they wouldn't let the children watch Star Wars because they get consumed in all these characters and they can't listen to anything else except Star Wars. So they forbid it from all the kids in school. And so, but the kids, they want to get absorbed. So understanding that these pastimes are actually transcendentally enacted to absorb our minds and our thoughts, to distinguish between right and wrong, good and evil. They have these classic archetypes like Duryodhana, right, or Ravana, of Lord Ram, of the great sages. And the interesting thing, it reads like a comic book when you're 5, but it reads a different way when you're 15. When you're 25, it reads another way. It's like the acorn is blossoming and becoming a sprout, becoming a sapling, becoming a tree, and eventually giving tens of thousands more acorns. And when you're 80 years old and you're reading the Ramayana, it means something. I'm sure you reading the Srimad Bhagavatam we're 53 this year, right?
Yep.
About to be 54 this year.
Comes quick.
But it's different, isn't it? Reading the Bhagavatam now is different. You want to share the difference of reading it now compared to when you were 22?
Well, I can share one thing, that just like one detail. But I always remember then when I used to read Bhagavatam, because what Bhagavatam does is it tells stories, and it's got this, the storyline is going. Usually it's some challenge that a devotee of Lord Vishnu is going through, and how they face those challenges and how they rise to the occasion. And then Lord Vishnu will appear before that person, and then that person will offer prayers. And then there's a whole lengthy, list of verses.
Thousands of prayers.
Yeah, it's like
when we were younger, we're like, oh, boring.
I would feel that way. I'd feel like, okay, it's always the same. Here goes the prayer. Let's get back to the story.
Right.
Now, I feel like the whole story is just to create a platform for those prayers.
Right.
Because and those prayers are so rich.
Right.
It speaks much more to me now. The whatever subtleties were there, or somehow I was just dull to it. And I'm sure now, and just as this, what it's saying here, that the one, it says that they're fresh even after repeated readings, and you find new light in the information. I'm sure as I read now, that when I read hopefully, when I read in the future, it'll still be more there, And what always amazes me, the speakers, those people that speak on this sacred yogic texts, sometimes speakers try to impress you with the information that they have. They've read a book that you haven't read, so they go and they try to bring something new to the table. But what really impresses me is when someone can tell me can read the same pastime, read the same section, and explain it to me in a way where I say, I never understood that before, but it's obvious. It's right there. How could I have not understood that? But I just see that some people, they penetrated deeper into it, and the realization is just deeper and clearer. And they have the realization to express it and explain it in ways that it's like, that was obvious. Why did I never pick that up before?
Sure.
They really get to the essence of it.
in my own life, I'm thinking that at a different vantage points of my life, the material world looks different. Like when you're young, you're always looking up. I'm going to do this. I got a plan to do this. I got a plan to do that. You got a lot of great material hopes and dreams. When I was 9, I wanted to be a baseball player, wanted to be a cop, wanted to be an army man, wanted to be you have these dreams of what, and then I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but did you ever get to a point where you looked up to a certain career thing, like a baseball player for me, right? And then I got to a certain,
did that one fall apart?
That one fell apart. Well, I wasn't good at anything sports wise, but what happened was I got to a certain age when I started realizing I'm older than all the baseball players.
Right.
Right? They're only 22 years old, those baseball players. And then it's sort of like the cop things. I'm at this age right now where the Army won't take me, the cops won't take me. It's like my window of opportunity is shut down for all those childhood dreams. And so on the other side of 50, the material world, which is always getting sort of like, the sages mock it. You're investing in the material world, you fool. Don't you understand? You're a spiritual being. Don't be fooled by the material world. Don't be fooled by the shiny light or what appears to be
the wisp.
The will of the wisp, or what appears so shiny in the sand is a piece of glass. You're gonna cut up your hands if you go run after that glass. So so I think from this side of 50, you start to see the bubble of romance of the material world is a little bit punctured. You feel a little less more grounded, a little bit more sober. And you're like, yeah, the material world's temporary. There's people I know that have died. So many more people than when I was 40 or 30. This life is short. My kids are growing up so fast. And you get a little bit more sober about the world. And I think if you're following life on a spiritual path, that's okay. Because you feel like, yeah, that's right. I have been investing that in my spirit self. If you're not on a spiritual path, the world becomes a little bleaker as you get older.
Sure.
I'm not as beautiful as I was or as strong as I was. I can't do those sports as good as I was. I used to drop back from the handstand into the wheel and jump back to chaturanga. Can't do that. Right?
Sure.
Anyway, that's how it's different. And so these same books come to life in your 80s and your 90s. But it's different than a comic book. And if you are 80 and you're 90 and you're still reading comic books like Spider-Man, a little weird, right? But these things start to
figurines.
People do it, man. Adult people, let's collect the figurines. I've got all the Marvel figurines. People are just bored. They just want to buy stuff. Get to a certain age, let's just buy stuff. Anyway, it's glorifying these books that we love, the Puranas, the histories. Text 20, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. Text 21, knowing well that the age of Kali has already begun, we are assembled here in this holy place to hear at great length the transcendental message of Godhead, and in this way perform sacrifice. Yeah. Some people say that yoga asanas are only designed so you can just sit in peace and listen.
Sure.
Ever heard that?
I have heard that. Yeah, and it's interesting that they say in this way perform sacrifice. In other words, all of us here, all of us on Zoom, podcast listeners that will download it in the future, you're investing something, you're sacrificing something to say, rather than listen to this or do that, I'm going to sacrifice this time to hear Bhagavatam. And these sages were saying, we're going to make a sacrifice right now. We want sutta, we want to hear from you. And in this way, we'll sacrifice. It's an offering in a sense.
Right. So I think in America, when we hear the word sacrifice, it's sort of like sacrifice a goat or sacrifice. Yeah. It gets a little creepy. We're sacrificing the hearing process. I'm going to turn off the radio. I'm going to turn off the news. CNN's off. Weather Channel. Ever see these people just watch weather all day?
I don't understand it.
People watch weather like all day. I don't get it.
But actually, sacrifice, from what I understand, is derived from the Roman or the Latin, but it's to make something sacred, right? To make something sacred.
Never thought of that.
Yeah.
to make something sacred, like sacraments.
So let's make this time sacred. Let's make our process of speaking and hearing sacred. Let's make our questioning and answering sacred.
I just had a sacrament. Yeah. Sacred.
Yeah.
Sacramento.
Sacramento.
Sacred city.
Yeah.
You want to hear an interesting thing about, in the purport they speak about the ages and how long the ages are.
All right.
Anyone know how long? Studio audience, live audience, write it up on the board here. How long is Kali Yuga? Who knows? Write it up.
427,000. 427,000? 32,000?
Good. Dana, good guess. 400,000.
I'm not. Anyway, I think we're in the ballpark.
437,000. I think
Oh, it
that's
says it
what
right there.
No, I think I know that. I think I'm smart about. I think I have little bits of trivia. Yeah. Okay. Let's hear what the purport says. That was enough of that. This age of Kali is not at all suitable for self-realization, as was Satya Yuga, the golden age, or Treta or Dwapara Yugas, the silver and copper ages. For self-realization, the people in Satya Yuga, living a lifetime of 100,000 years, were able to perform prolonged meditation. And in Treta Yuga, when the duration of life was 10,000 years, self-realization was attained by performance of great sacrifice. And in Dwapara Yuga, when the duration of life was 1,000 years, self-realization was attained by worship of the Lord. But in Kali Yuga, the maximum duration of life being 100 years only, that combined with various difficulties, the recommended process of self-realization is that of hearing and chanting the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord. The sages of Namaskar began this process in a place meant specifically for bhaktas or devotees of the Lord.
You know what we should do someday, Raghu?
Have a 1,000-year sacrifice.
Well,
the sages of Namaskar.
We should have a wisdom of the sages retreat or pilgrimage to Naimisharanya.
Ooh. Ever been to Naimisharanya?
I've never been there. I had the opportunity once, and I was in Vrindavan. I was like, why should I leave Vrindavan? But it was with Raghunath Swami, and I should have gone. And I heard that he spoke on Bhagavatam in Naimisharanya, and it was just like, and I regret it to this day.
Spiritual regrets.
Spiritual regrets.
Spiritual regret. Tara, you ever been there, Tara? No? Namaskar.
Tara will come with us.
Okay, let's go. Let's take Tara. Let's do it. We're gonna have one. Me and Kaustubha are gonna have one. Well, we're gonna have one in Puerto Rico. We're having a Puerto Rico. We're doing a retreat in Puerto Rico at the Noah and Silla.
Arranging.
And we might try to do something at the Bhakti Center, like a Wisdom of the Sages Bhakti Center weekend. Wouldn't that be fun? Give yourself a good reason to go to New York City. Do all the famous New York City things.
Maybe sometime in the late spring or something.
Statue of Liberty, ice skating at Rockefeller Center, and Wisdom of the Sages.
And a little Bhagavatam.
What? I went in the torch. Stupid. I've never been there. Okay.
You've been to
I've never been to the torch of the Empire of the.
Oh, I see.
I'm talking about
never been
Statue of
New
Liberty.
Yorkers don't go there. I've never been there.
I've never been there.
We had to in the second grade. Day trip.
I did have a student. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. I have a student that owns. Anyway, forget it.
Back to the Bhagavatam.
Back to the Bhagavatam. I'm so easily diverted from spiritual. No.
Oh yeah, right. You said that. Okay.
Knowing well. Okay, we just read that. Text 22. We think that we have met your goodness by the will of providence, just so that we may accept you as the captain of the ship for those who desire to cross the difficult ocean of Kali, which deteriorates all the good qualities of human beings. What do you think of that? This ocean of Kali, this age that we live in, deteriorates all the good qualities of human beings.
It's saying that we have to realize that we're living in a difficult age, that we tend to be bound up in networks of illusions and different kinds of sufferings, and that one has to actually have a strategy about how I'm going to transcend it. That's what a yogi is focused on. How do I transcend it?
I like that. A spiritual strategy.
Spiritual strategy.
You know.
And so the sages are saying, hey, you're the one that can help us with this. So please speak to us and help us understand it.
I mean, our sadhana is a spiritual strategy.
Yeah.
Tomorrow everybody starts, part of our morning program here at the training is we start chanting japa. one round of japa. Y'all are supposed to bring your japa beads tomorrow. If you don't have them, you're in trouble. It's called japa shame. So anyway, having some japa, having some regular reading, or some singing in your life, some worship, some puja, an altar in your house. It's important parts of shifting your focus and your consciousness. And that's a strategy.
And that regularity that you were talking about earlier in the show, that it's done daily.
That it's done
makes all the
daily.
difference.
And if there's some accountability, perhaps accountability with a friend.
Mhm.
And what happens is it's slightly addictive.
Mhm.
It's slightly addictive. You get into it. Matter of fact, just reading the Bhagavatam, you know what reading the Bhagavatam makes you want to do? Read the Bhagavatam more. So I'm sorry, I want to read up for what I'm reading. And then I want to follow through and read past it, read before it, and see how it works in context.
That's what I said earlier, right? Those who have developed a taste for it.
Right. Now,
they
someone
relish
could argue, well, isn't this just another addiction? Yeah. So what? So what? Somebody said that recently. That's just another addiction. Your chanting is just another addiction. Take away your beads. Don't you equate meditation, chanting, read the Bhagavatam with just another addiction. They've obviously never been addicted to anything. Criminal. This is a different addiction. This addiction makes you feel grounded, connected, liberated. It doesn't start making you lose your job, your family, your home. That's a different type of addiction. This is addiction, which is, purifying to the consciousness, purifying to the body. That's what the mind's going to get addicted to something.
That's right.
Choose your addictions carefully. I like how it's also described as an ocean, because Kali Yuga, if you've ever been to sea, which I don't know if I have ever been to sea, actually. I've been in the Long Island Sound. But, you get in the middle of the ocean there. You can't see. You get to a point where there's no land on any side. Imagine crossing that ocean.
Like when we flew here. Every time I fly across, don't you, just for at least for a moment or two?
I like the illusion that I'm at a theater. But if I actually understood what's going on, I'm sitting in a cigar-shaped tube 32,000 miles above the ocean.
And it could drop in?
At any moment. At any moment.
And it's a big ocean. And if you're dropped right in the middle of that, what hope is there?
What hope? Even if you had a boat, even if you actually slid down that thing, got into the boat.
Still a long shot.
It's still a long shot. What hope is there? There could be a storm, right?
Yeah.
There could be crazy fish out there. Insane fish.
You would need to take shelter of something suitable.
Right. Or a skilled sailor.
Yeah. And
that's what we're, so they're calling their guru here. We think that by the meeting of your goodness, you will be the captain of the ship. For those who desire to cross this difficult ocean of Kali. That was very beautiful. Since Sri Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystics, so that's the word Yogeshwar. That's a beautiful name of Krishna, means the master of all yogis. Since Krishna, who is Yogeshwar, has departed for his own abode. So Krishna has just left the planet. He was just here. Mm-hmm. That's the beginning of Kali Yuga. When Krishna leaves the planet, that's the end of Dwapara Yuga and the changing of seasons, so to speak. Please tell us whom these principles of Dharma have now gone for shelter.
You know what the answer to that question is going to be?
The answer for
where Dharma
has gone for shelter.
I'll give you a hint.
Give me a hint.
You're holding it in your hand.
Oh, in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
In the Srimad Bhagavatam.
All right.
Yeah.
It's going into the very conversation that we're having. Guess what? We're in chapter 2. This is called Divinity and Divine Service. Sutta Goswami.
So just going into it. We just heard the questions of the sages in chapter 1.
Yeah.
Sutta Goswami is going to answer those questions in chapter 2. And chapter 2 is so rich in yogic thought that we'll see the whole Bhagavatam kind of stem out of it. All the basic fundamental questions are so nicely answered by Sutta Goswami.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Text 1. Sutta Goswami, so he's the guru or the teacher of all these liberated souls, being fully satisfied with the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. Sukadeva Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances to the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all.
So the first thing he does.
Right before he speaks, he thanks his teacher. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, leaving home without undergoing the reformation by the sacred thread or ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father, Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, "Oh, my son!" Indeed, only the trees, which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation, echoed in response to the bereaved father. Want to shed light on that enigmatic?
Sure. I don't know what that word means.
Mysterious.
that enigma.
That
Yeah.
enigma
So
wrapped in a mystery.
Wrapped in a riddle. This is so Sutta Goswami. You see, this Bhagavatam it starts with the sages asking Sutta Goswami, putting questions before Sutta Goswami. Sutta Goswami says these are, and we're about to read these and say these are the best possible questions you could ask. And the way that I'm going to answer them for you is I'm going to tell you about another gathering like this that I was in, where this great soul named Sukadeva Goswami spoke. And that's my teacher. That's who I heard the Srimad Bhagavatam from. So the first thing he does is says, let me offer my obeisances to Sukadeva Goswami. And then he begins to tell a little bit about the history of him, that he's the son of Srila Vyasadeva. He's the son of the compiler of all the Vedic literature. And when he was born, he was this uniquely liberated soul that generally in this Vedic tradition, you would go through these different rites and ceremonies of, rites of passage to purify one's intelligence, to kind of shape one's character in a certain way. He was just so transcendental that he just wandered off immediately. And even his father was like, "Oh, my son, where are you going?"
He was naked.
Well, then we're going to hear about that later, that he's just a...
There's a little spoiler there. The guru was naked. I think that's interesting.
Maybe that's where it comes from.
The guru was naked. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. You see, the first canto, which is quite a few chapters we're going to read, is all Sutta Goswami. We don't even get to Sukadeva Goswami speaking it. We get to hear from him beginning at the second canto. And at the end of the first canto, we get a description of him. That he's like a 16-year-old, beautiful, naked, transcendentalist, wandering, and he's being followed by like all kinds of
higher beings came to hear from him. They heard he was going to speak. I want to be there to hear him speak.
And although he was very young, he wanders into the scene where the king, Maharaj Parikshit, is about to die, and he has these important questions to place forth. He's surrounded by all these super exalted sages who are much older than Sukadeva, but everybody recognizes that. Just seeing him, it's very clear that he's not of this world. And he sits down, and then he speaks the Bhagavatam. So Sutta Goswami right now is offering his obeisances to Sukadeva Goswami.
Text 3. Let me offer my respectful obeisances to him, Sukha, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke the most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by personal experience.
So the cream of all the Vedic knowledge, you could say all the yogic teachings, is coming through the mouth of Sukadeva Goswami in the form of the Srimad Bhagavatam.
I just want to make a point here that Vyasadeva is actually a book, although sometimes he steps out of the book and speaks of Vyasadeva.
Because he's speaking, because it's Sukadeva that's speaking it, right? So Vyasadeva is speaking, and then he's saying what Sukadeva said, and some of it was about him.
Yeah, so that can get a little confusing there.
Text 3.
I'm just like looking at the commentary. This is a nice one. Listen. There's no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or an insignificant ant, can be happy.
From top to bottom.
Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, right? Anybody got a plan? I'm working on my plan.
And then when I get there,
Okay, it's got a plan. We're going to get this plan. And then I'll be happy in that plan. Everybody, even the ants. Ever see ants and they're planning? I've got 1,000 of us, millions of us. We're going to build it. And then you just like by mistake kick their ant colony. They don't even miss a beat. They're not even like, oh man. They're just like, okay, back to work. We got a plan. They got a plan. They don't miss a beat. They're not complaining. Oh, we worked so hard. Get right back into it. Right? Everybody tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everybody is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of creation. Yet the unhappy materialist can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Is that interesting? What do we have to work on most? We have to refine our desires.
it all depends on what we're exposing our mind to. Right?
Yeah. I mean, if you hang out with people who have certain desires, you'll start getting into those desires. And I lived in Los Angeles. You know what everyone's into Los Angeles? Cars. It's a car place. I never even thought about cars until I moved to Los Angeles. I was like, yeah, car. I need cars. It's just like car. And in New York, it's like apartments. Apartments. Oh, you got that apartment?
That's true.
It's true, right? So whenever you hang out with people and people get into their hobbies of things, I collect these. You don't collect those. Oh. And you just, whoever you hang out with, they start to spark those desires in you. I need to hang out with people who have a spiritual plan. And then I get those spiritual desires and I refine those desires. That's why I hang out with you.
That's why I hang out with you. All of you.
You're just saying that. You're just saying that because I said it.
I'm serious about it.
Okay. You want to hear something interesting? This is a very interesting little note for animal lovers.
Nugget.
Therefore, the materialist, yet the unhappy materialist can get out simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish, they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes the thorny twigs. Because, you know what's interesting? You don't notice this thing living in America because we don't have camels. Camels eat thorns. And what the thorns do is it cuts their tongue. And they think the thorns taste good, but what they're tasting is their own blood. What do you think about that little thing?
Gross.
A little interesting trivia. Similarly, the materialist, similarly to the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey. And although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Is that a good word? A karmi? You karmi? You're such a karmi. Karmi means you're.
Say it in such a judgmental tone.
Well, it means you're working. Karma means to work. So you're working for something.
For a result.
For some result.
For the karma.
Right?
Hopefully the good karma that comes back.
You know, yeah. Like when we lived in the ashram, to be called a karmi is almost it's like you don't want to be called the karmi. You want to be called the bhakta. Yeah. Right? You want to work for devotion. You don't want to work for something.
Yeah. At least a yogi. Right?
Yeah.
It's like saying a materialist.
Anyway, we'll stop that.
But I think you read the commentary to the verse that we hadn't read yet.
I always do that.
Second time.
No, I did read that.
You sure?
Yeah, I hate to say you were wrong, but you were wrong on that one.
I think I'm right.
One of the few times you were ever wrong. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, oh my God, here it is. Check it out. This is our verse. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. How cool. We just read the invocation.
This text 5 has a great commentary.
Let me just pop into text 4 commentary. Because he says, all men are not created equal. That's the first thing it says. All men are, what? What about our Constitution? All men are not created equal. There are men who are conducted by the mode of goodness, others who are under the mode of passion, and others who are in mode of ignorance. There you go.
Well, we're gonna some show soon. We should go into depth about what that means about the gunas.
Yeah, I get a class on it today.
Wow.
But the thing is, that's actually just our body anyway. Ultimately, our real equality is the fact that we're spiritual beings.
Equal in one sense, but we're all different in another sense.
Sure. I mean, who wants to be all the same? I don't want to be like you. I like you because you're you. I like him because he's him. I like her because she's her. I don't want to be you, and I don't want you to be me. Be yourself. You know what I mean? I don't want to make everybody androgynous, everybody all one. We're not all one. We're all different. It's beautiful that we're different. I like listening to really smart people. I like seeing great art. I like hearing great musicians. Why do I just want to merge and make everybody one? We're not one. We're all different.
And at the same time, to have that discrimination, to associate with these people, I'm going to benefit from. If I associate with these people, it's likely to take me another direction. So one has to be able to
have
on one level, everyone's equal, but on another level, people are operating under different influences.
Yeah, our real equality doesn't come in terms of strength, intelligence, ability. We all have different things. We're not equal when it comes to the body. We're not equal when it comes to the mind or the intelligence. We're equal because we're all spiritual beings. And even that, we got to take it to the next level then. You really want to understand equality? It's not that just humans are equal. We got to see equality in the more subtle element, which is spirit. And when you go there, then you start to even extend it outside your species, right? How about all the animals? How about all the forest? They're all citizens as well. Why be a speciesist? You speciesist.
So it's laid out in these texts.
We're speciesists. It's true. Think about it. Think about it.
Okay.
You know, disgusting roach. Imagine if I said someone, I don't like the way they look, so you're disgusting. I don't like the way you look, you're disgusting. If I said that, you'd be like, Raghunath, you idiot. Why would you ever say that? But we say that about any different thing's got a different body. A roach. It's just a roach. Guess what? Roaches have babies. Roaches care for their babies. You know? Yes, they do care for their babies.
Are you
everybody loves their babies. You know what I mean? You know, infestation. How about a bunch of little bunnies around? Would you say, I have an infestation of bunnies? No, they're adorable. They're adorable. No, we are speciesists. We like the cute furry. We hate the grotesque, right? But there is an equality not based on the body, and that's from the spirit.
It said that where there's birth, growth, reproduction, maintenance for some time, gradually dwindling or disease, and ultimately death. Where you see those symptoms, it means the atma is there, the soul is there. And
say this again. Wait.
Lindsay, you looking for?
Lindsay, write this down. Listen to what Kaustubha is saying.
Birth, growth, reproduction, then the tricky one, the maintenance for some time, dwindling or disease, and ultimately death. These are the symptoms of the atma. Where we see these, we can understand that the soul is there. So we see in human beings, they're born, they grow, etc. We also see that in the animals. We also see it in the plants.
Birth, growth, reproduction, maintenance, dwindling, disease, and death.
So if we see if we see a tree, it's born, it grows, it reproduces, it ultimately dwindles, it dies. Then we can understand that there's an atma within the tree.
You forgot give some fruit. I think that's one of them too.
It's
give
not.
some offspring. Give some offspring.
Reproduce.
Oh,
You were wrong. You were wrong. That
you know, there's this guy, and he doesn't have his name up there. It just says iPhone, and he's on a one of those jogging machines, listening to the show. And I'm really feeling
that
like
guy.
I love him too. I love him too, and I'm really feeling sort of like, why aren't I jogging right now? Like, I can't just appreciate that this guy's jogging. I have to like, why don't I jog enough? That's what I'm thinking when I see this guy jogging. I gotta do more. I gotta do more. This guy's getting the benefit of the Bhagavatam and jogging, and I'm just sitting here like sipping.
But in any case, this is the next point. That wherever we see those symptoms, it means the atma is there. It's in the tree, it's in the grass, it's in the bunny, it's in the cockroach, it's in the human. But also, that soul, the atma is equal. it may not be that it has its full expression in a particular body, but it has the potential. Just like, say, I wanted to see how fast you could drive a car, right?
Yeah.
How fast can Raghu drive? And he broke out that truck that you've got. What is that?
F-150.
F-150 turbo thing. How fast can it go?
They're pretty good. They got good engines there.
Wow. Give me a.
It can go about 110, 115.
Okay, go
For a truck, not
110,
bad.
115. So you open that thing up. We're out in the desert somewhere, and you got up to 110, right? So it's kind of fast. But then if you're the next day you're in a Porsche, which you can take up to like 200, right? Raghunath opens it up to 200. Now I'm saying, well, Raghunath's really fast. He's much faster than he was before. It's not that you're faster. It's just
Right.
you're in a faster car.
Sure.
And so the atma in the plant, it's not that it's a different atma, it's just in a different form. And in that form, its consciousness is going to be somewhat duller, and its ability to express itself is going to be limited. And then when it enters into the animal body, when it's in the cockroach, it's somewhat more. And when it's in the dog, how many dog owners do we have here? Right? So the dog, it can really express itself,
The lizard could come for the second day to your Bhagavatam.
You know, they're not ordinary lizards.
I'm sure.
Every day.
But like the dog, you can see like I hear people say that when they start to pack to go on a trip, the dog can tell they're gonna leave, and they get upset, and it can express itself, and then the human still more. So there's an equality that's there, and then based on the body, then there's differentiation, and even in the human body, because people are associating with different energy, whether it's the higher energy, the middle energy, or the lower energy, it'll affect us in different ways. So there has to be discernment, a certain type of judgment, but there also has to be a vision of equality that lies underneath it all in order to see truth.
I like you. I like you. All right, I'm going to go on. I was going to read the purport again. Text 5. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and thus of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. There it is again.
Connection.
There it is
the
again.
The sage said, please tell us what can bring complete satisfaction to the self. What's the Sanskrit?
Munaya sadhu prastoham bhavabir lokamangalam yat krita krishna samprashno yatma suprasidati.
So yenatma suprasidati. How atma suprasidati, complete satisfaction of the self. The sages in the previous chapter asked, how can we find that? And now Sukadeva Goswami says, your questions are so good because it's these questions. There's so many questions that we can be asking, but the questions that you're asking are in relation to Lord Krishna, who's the very source of all existence, our source. And questions related to him can bring one, and only questions, those questions, can bring one to complete satisfaction. Complete satisfaction.
Who wants practical experience of this? What do you do when you watch the news? There's a bunch of questions. What's going on in Syria? What's going on in the United States? What's going on in the wildfires? What's going on? There's just questions and questions and questions and questions and questions and answers and answers and answers. And how do you feel after you watch CNN or BBC? How do you feel? You feel ecstatic?
Yenatma
suprasidati? No one's feeling suprasidati. They're all like, No one's feeling good after reading Time cover to cover. How do you feel after class in the Bhagavatam? Even if it wasn't a good class. Yeah, you just feel a little blissful, a little peaceful, a little connected. Sound vibration has effect on the consciousness, right? Sound vibration, the words that you hear. If we sit around and gossip, talk about temporary things, criticize other people, we will walk out here feeling gross, grotesque, right? Hearing spiritual information, it gets rid of material anxiety, it puts our life in perspective. It gives us some hope and some direction. It makes my so-called important problems seem to be very small.
Different perspective.
It gives a much beautiful perspective. 5-minute warning.
Read the commentary. Let's hold the next verse because that's big.
That's the big verse.
Yeah.
That's the favorite verse. Great verse to memorize. The next verse coming up. You want to read the commentary?
Yeah, please.
Since it has been stated herein before that the Bhagavatam the absolute truth is to be known. The questions of the sages in Namasaranya are proper and just because they pertain to Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead, the absolute truth. In the Bhagavad Gita, text 15:15, the personality of Godhead says that in all the Vedas there is nothing but the personality of but the urge for searching after him, Lord Krishna. You got that verse, 15:15?
Yeah, give me the first word. Tara.
Tara, what you got? 15:15, Bhagavad Gita.
Think of it.
Come on!
This is embarrassing.
This
to
is
not
bad.
know
This is
that
bad.
one,
It's
right?
not Mamavam So, right? It's the one with Vaidascha
Yes,
Sarvar Vritti Sani Visto. Vaidascha
Vaidascha Sarvar Aham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Vedavid Eva
All right,
Chaham.
there we go. Thank you. Mara.
This podcast is like bad for like exposing your rustiness.
Rusty. We're just a rusty shloka crew.
Here we are. Gotta tune up for this kind of thing. We got to like 15 minutes before the show. We got to like go through our shlokas.
The whole world is full of questions and answers.
That's what you're just saying.
I know. I just said that. I love when I say something and I read the same thing in the purport. The whole world is filled with questions and answers. The birds, the beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetual questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with questions and answers. And in the evening, also the same birds come back and again become busy with questions and answers.
How was your day?
The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so are also the lawyers in the court and the students in the schools and the colleges. The legislators in the parliament are also very busy with questions and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers, although they go on making such questions and answers for their whole lives. They are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the spiritual subject of Krishna or myself or self-realization. Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father or son, and the object of conjugal love.
All the different russes.
These are all the different relationships. It's
Those
interesting.
weren't random statements. There's a whole science to relationship, and it was mentioning each of the varieties there.
It's interesting because what happens in Vedic thought and Vedic teachings of spirituality, you know, you grew up in a Judeo-Christian background, you say, yeah, I worship the omnipotent God. So, but when the Vedas are so deep, they go into like nuanced relationships you can have with divinity. Super interesting.
That's the esoteric side of bhakti.
Yeah. I mean, of course you can say, yes, I am part of something bigger. That makes sense too. But imagine they speak about Krishna as my lover.
My friend.
My friend. Krishna's my buddy.
Or even
my little baby. Krishna's my little baby.
Sweet baby.
Sweet baby Krishna. There's a whole section of northern India who worships Krishna as sweet baby Gopal. It's interesting. It's interesting.
I think you're part of it. Must have been last life.
Maybe. Definitely this life. Anyway, forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers, but none of them are able to give us complete satisfaction. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned or without giving answers. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. One should learn the Srimad Bhagavatam and make an all-around solution to the problems pertaining to social, political, and religious matters.
There's the strategy right there.
There's the strategy. Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum total of all things.
Right there. Sum total of all things.
Perfect timing. Look, he's jogging faster now on the machine. Oh, it's Eric Noble. Hey, Eric. Thanks, everybody, joining us. Everybody's listening to the podcast. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue. We're going to a really cool verse, the next verse. Thanks for joining us.